Okay, I have a quorum. I'd like to begin. Number of guests in the gallery, I want to welcome you here to our council meeting tonight on behalf of council, so it's good to see you. We have a few matters to do before we get to our public meeting, and so we'll get right to it. We started at 3 o'clock this afternoon, and we just come back from recess. So we have one ceremonial activity. Mr. John B. Lee is with us. And John, as you make your way forward, although you really don't need an introduction, we welcome you, and you are here to do a reading of your poem, Dangerous to Say. And I have read it, and it's a dandy. And I'll leave it at that. And John, again, you are our Norfolk County Poet Laureate, and we are very privileged to have you as our county poet. I think that's been about 4 years now. I know time goes by. Is it longer than 4 years? Maybe 5? I don't know. Doesn't matter, but I know it goes by quickly. So welcome, and I'll turn things over to you, John. Thank you. There should be a button on the right side there, and you're on.
Thank you very much, Mayor Luke, councilors, members of the public. It's an honor and a privilege to read this poem, which in part was inspired by two things. One, the 100th anniversary of Vimy Ridge, which most people know the history of, and this being the 150th anniversary of our founding as a nation. Dangerous to say, from within the Te Deum and vigor of the day, I overhear two older men discussing a program seen the night before. They have conflated true stories from two very different wars, Vimy Ridge and Dieppe. And they can't recall which battle was which where was where, or when was when. Oh, how the green and muddy land between the bloody trenches wept to hear. How the crimson sand upon the gory beaches mourned her dead indifferently. The souls of those who'd lost their lives at Troy, unhorsed by night. Come, Lundy's Lane, lament your loss. Come, Gettysburg, address all death. Come, Agincourt, you band of brothers flowering in fallen France. Come, Waterloo. Come, you humble-hearted heroes of Thermopylae and Marathon. You've lost your breath in time. I've seen your shattered helmets on a shelf or rusting under polished glass. And as I come to praise the Hittite forges of Hephaestus with his burning arm, raised hammering out of Etna's ash like the sleeping lovers of Pompeii, I know I've had one uncle sweeping mines at midnight off the fatal coasts of France, as his own uncle also fought the Germans when the Baron ruled the reddish air. Though now their ghosts seem little more than crossing fogs, and all for glory, all for cost. It seems it may be dangerous to say, when only strangers to the time have voice, and time comes aching like a shadow on the stony sky. Thank you.
Thank you. Any comments, council? That was very good, John.
Thank you.
As always. And I want to thank you on behalf of this council for the work you do. And I want to thank you again for taking the time to come here. This April is Poetry Month. And as always, you do not disappoint. Incredible work. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Luke. Thanks, everyone.
Pleasure. We will now hear our one deputation. It was bumped up from last week. We had a pretty busy schedule last week, and then after our deputation, Gail, if you want to come forward, we will get on with our one planning application this evening. Thank you. Welcome, Gail. And again, you have 10 minutes. If you get to the 9-minute mark, you're going to hear from me.
You can throw something at me.
Okay. Thank you very
Yes.
much, and you know I wouldn't do that. Thank you, and welcome, Gail.
Thanks, Mayor Luke and councillors. I'm here on behalf of the Rotary Club Norfolk Sunrise, and many of my fellow members are sitting behind me here for support. We have been the first nonprofit who has undertaken the task of the Catch the Ace lottery. We got the license in November of 2016, and we paid $300 for that privilege of doing that lottery every week at the Port Dover Legion from January 6th, hopefully, to December the 8th. If you remember that the format, we sell 400 tickets a week for $5 a piece, and on Friday nights at the Legion, we pull a winning ticket. That person wins 20% of the pot, which we've been very fortunate every week to sell out every week, which is phenomenal. So that person receives $400 that night. Then they get the option of going to a board with 52 cards and choosing, hopefully not for our sake, the ace of spades. So we are in our 15th week. It has not been found, and our total now for the person who does find it is $9,000. So there is fever frenzy for these tickets now if anyone's gone to the Legion. Don't go now, they're sold out. So it's a great event. We certainly appreciate it. It's brought a lot of partnership between us and the Legion, which I think is great when nonprofits work together for a cause to improve the community. Our issue is that if the ace is found, we have to reapply for another license. And you have passed a change in the licensing to say that you would like to see 3% of our possible gross profit, which would be $50,000 if we went right to the end, right up front, in order for us to get this license, or in other words, $1,500. There aren't too many nonprofits that want to put out $1,500 right at the start and to hopefully get past the third week when you would actually see a profit. So what I'm asking you to consider, to take back to staff, is to give us the initial fee of $300. When that finishes in 10 weeks, which is 3% of $1,000 a week for 10 weeks is $300, we will then pay you 3% of what's owing every month. How's that? I don't hear a round of applause. Since we are the only nonprofit that's undertaken this, it seems there is a reason why, and I think it's the fee. It's a lot of work. I'm not discrediting that. The Rotarians and the Legion people have worked a great deal in order to sell 400 tickets every single week. But I do think it's an opportunity that some nonprofits excuse me, could be missing out on because they're seeing this large sum up front. Because that doesn't include your ticket printing, which is approximately $90 a week, plus the Legion in there. So it's difficult for others to get started. So I'm not only asking for the Rotary Club Norfolk Sunrise, but I'm asking for other nonprofits that are considering it, coming to the Legion and seeing what we're doing and trying to emulate that. But when they hear what the cost of the licensing is, nothing's going any further. We do have a draw Friday, Good Friday, because by law we have to have it every single Friday. So the Legion is opening up just for that. Not sure it's necessary, but that's the law apparently. So other than that, it's going on as agreed. The only other issue that we have as Rotary is we raise money all year to spend the next year. But by law, again, this money has to be spent before the next license is issued. So we have a few issues that we have to rearrange with Rotary or have some leniency in this lottery cause.
Thank you very much, and certainly I understand your request to be that council consider staging the payment.
That's a good word for it.
Over a number of weeks.
Prorating it.
Prorated, thank you.
Yes, there's an example in London actually. One club has done it 3 times, and each time the ace of spades has been found the first week. So they're out a lot of money. So for me to keep in good standing with the people that are sitting behind me here at Rotary, I just assume that not happen. So that's my concern more so than it is anything else.
Questions from members of council to Gail? Councillor Black?
Don't necessarily have a question, but we have had some other concerns about this, so perhaps it is time to really have a good look at it.
Mm-hmm.
Councillor Columbus?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Gail, your the monies that you make are a nonprofit organization.
Yeah.
Do you where all do you put your charity towards?
Well, we just gave $5,000 to the Norfolk General Hospital, and we're looking at supplying something at the Lighthouse Festival. We've given $2,000 to the Legion, the Royal Canadian Legion here in Simcoe, in order to do some of their updates. We give to the Apple program for the schools. We also do youth exchange, making sure kids get to camp, things like that. So we do a multitude of things. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Further questions? Thank you, Gail, very much.
Great.
We'll deal first of all with the motion to receive as information. Sonnenberg has moved, Columbus has seconded that the deputation of Ms. Catherwood respecting Catch the Ace lottery be received as information. Any discussion on this motion? Those in favor? It's carried. Councillor Black, any further direction?
Mayor Luke, I know you and I think Councillor Wells have had a similar situation, and we did discuss it with the clerk. I can understand the dilemma of the nonprofits. It certainly does not seem fair to me, and if there was some way that we could make it a little easier for them, I certainly would support that. I'm not about to say how we could do that. Maybe the clerk would have some ideas. Maybe we should forward this to the clerk and allow him to see if there's something that he could do to improve the situation, make it a little bit easier for the nonprofits to participate, and then bring it back to us, to council at a later date, very, very soon.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, obviously we're willing to meet and discuss with the groups, and we've already been kind of considering options. One of the things that I'd suggest is that we do a report back, because there's several different options that council might consider, because this the 3% rate applies not just to Catch the Ace. So we have other charitable things going on where there's like car rallies, raffles for a car or something, where people are paying the same amount of money. So we wouldn't want to do it with one area without having a holistic kind of approach. But yeah, there's obviously options that we can bring back, and we're happy to bring a further report back for council.
Well, would you accept the motion just to direct the...
Yeah, it's written here, but if you want to move it...
Oh, okay.
You know what it is to bring back a staff report with options.
That's right.
Do you want to move that?
Right on.
And then I'll get a second, and then if you wish to discuss
Thank
it,
you, Mayor
that'll be
Luke.
great. Thank you, sir. I have Councillor Black has moved, and Councillor Wells has seconded that the deputation of Ms. Catherwood be referred to staff for a further report to council, and I think that's the perfect way to handle this. Discussion. Those in favor? Carried. Kind of a timeline, maybe a couple months?
Sure. I mean, we'll try to do it in a couple months for sure. I know if somebody pulls the ace, they're going to be in a hurry, so we'll try to rush it at that stage if that happens.
Oh. Okay, well, it's in your hands now, and thank you very much. And Gail, thank you for your deputation. Okay, public meeting time. I now officially open the public meetings. They're held under the Planning Act and the Municipal Act. I would advise all those in attendance that the Ontario Municipal Board has the power under the Planning Act to dismiss an appeal to either a zoning bylaw and/or an official plan amendment if the appellant does not make oral submissions at the public meeting or does not make a written submission to Norfolk County Council before the zoning bylaw is passed and/or before the official plan amendment is adopted. I would also advise everyone in attendance that these meetings are televised and web streamed, and all items discussed are a matter of public record. I am on page 92 of our agenda. It has their staff report DCS 1728. A combined official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment application was received to place a site-specific agricultural policy on the subject lands and rezone the lands from agriculture to general industrial to facilitate development of the Titan Trailers operation. 657694 Ontario Limited and Agent Civic Planning Solutions has put forth the application affecting the lands described as Highway Number 3 at RR3 Delhi. I do now open the public meeting on this report, DC S1728. We have today, along with Mr. Baird, we have our manager of planning, and that would be Pam Dusling, and of course Shannon Van Dalen is here, and she will, I know she will, present this report at this time, correct? Thank you very much.
That is correct, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
It's all yours. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council, staff, and members of the public. This presentation is in regards to an amendment to the Norfolk County Official Plan, as well as the Norfolk County Zoning Bylaw, to permit industrial uses for the development of a new facility as part of the Titan Trailers operation. The subject lands are located east of Cortland, with road frontage along Highway 3 and Talbot Street. The lands are a 4.8 hectare, part of a larger 19 hectare parcel, with the balance of the property being located within the urban boundary area of Cortland, and those additional lands are also already designated and zoned for industrial purposes. The intent of this application is to place a site-specific policy to the agricultural designation within the official plan and rezone the subject lands from agriculture to a site-specific general industrial lands to permit the intended development. It is noted that the proposed designation and proposed zoning will be the same as currently exists on the Titan Trailers property to the east. The proposed amendments were reviewed in the context of the provincial policy statement as well as the Norfolk County official plan. And while it is noted that the preservation and protection of agricultural lands as a resource is very important to the county and the planning process, the subject lands are considered not to have any real function for the agricultural purposes. The lands are minimal in size and removed from and have no consolidation with other agricultural properties. The lands to both the east and the west have planned industrial functions. It is also noted that as part of the 5-year official plan review and the industrial lands report, the subject lands, along with the properties to the east, have been recommended for inclusion within the urban boundary area for Cortland and designated for industrial business parks. Excuse me. The official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment were circulated to various departments and agencies, as well as neighboring property owners. There was no concerns or objections received from any of the adjacent property owners. A letter from the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Houses was received after the preparation of the report, and a copy has been provided to you at this time as well. The ministry outlines some concerns regarding the removal of prime agricultural lands. However, based on staff's review and the information provided by the proponent, Mr. Dave Rowe, the planning consultant, the proposal is considered appropriate development, and planning staff are recommending support of the application. It is also noted that a site plan application has been filed concurrently with the official plan and zoning bylaw for land use and is currently under review by the various departments and agencies. As stated, based on the foregoing, staff are recommending support of the application, and if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Thank
Well,
you.
thank you very much, and thank you for the report, Shannon. Okay, I'll see if there are any questions from council to staff. Councillor Columbus, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The planner's report talks that this is going to be to facilitate a new finishing plant facility for Titan Trailers operation. And then when you read Municipal Affairs and Housing, it indicates that this is basically for trailer storage. So are we talking about, I take it that Titan Trailers wants to put a building on this site, right? Whereas if you read Housing's comment, it basically talks that it's a storage area for trailers.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, currently Titan Trailers is using a portion of the property for outdoor storage of the existing operation. However, their plans are, and that's what's being reviewed as part of the site plan, is for a new processing facility, new finishing facility to be constructed on the property.
Has the Ministry of Municipal Affairs actually looked at the site and seen that a lot of this soil is disturbed? It's not supportive for agriculture?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, traditionally, Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing does not complete site inspections or site visits of properties.
Thank you.
Further? Not at this time. Okay, you'll have a chance later if there's any more questions. I see Mr. Rowe, the agent, is here. Is this Dave Holmes with you? I'm sure it's you, Dave. I know the voice now that you spoke, and I just wanted to make sure. So the applicant and the agent is here, so I have to go through this procedure. Is there anyone in attendance who wishes to speak in support of the application? And guess what, Mr. Rowe, you have the honor of going first if you wish to speak in support.
Thank you very much. This is actually, I guess, a very exciting moment for Titan Trailer and the county. This proposed second phase will be, I think, just about as big an industrial announcement as the Toyota facility here in town. Dave Holmes will be able to give you the details regarding the actual plant and the output and what they're intending to do. The new building will, I guess the best way to describe is encroach on the area that we're going through the official plan amendment for and zoning for. It's certainly, we straightened out the building. We've had a number of different takes on the building. It's kind of a work in progress, but it will definitely encroach into the area and will be used for part of the storage of trailers as well as some of the materials used in the facility. I'd also like to, I guess, thank planning staff and county staff for their assistance with this exercise. In terms of the agricultural part and concerns, especially from the ministry, where they tend to have objections to these type of things. We did hire a expert in terms of agriculture, and he did a very thorough justification report, and it did satisfy the Ministry of Agriculture and Food. That's pretty well it. If you have any questions specifically to dealing with the new facility itself, Dave Holmes is here to answer those kind of questions.
That very much. Thank you. Are there any questions for Mr. Rowe or for Mr. Holmes? Councillor Oliver? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, gentlemen, for being here. My first question is for you, I guess, Mr. Rowe. And as I look at the maps on our screen and also on the iPad, there is a pond in the northwest corner just adjacent to the subject lands that we're talking about. Is that a stormwater pond for some of the other developments previously, or is it just an old irrigation pond that happens to be coincidentally located?
It's an old irrigation pond. that will be temporarily used while there's a much larger facility being constructed further to the west. So
Okay.
it's all tied in.
So it will have some functionality, at least in the short term.
In the
but
shorter
You
term.
won't necessarily, or will you be locating the larger stormwater storage facility in that same spot, or will it
Well,
likely be somewhere
it'll be
else?
further to the west.
To the west, okay.
The vacant lands to the west is actually a much larger third phase of the development being planned for down the road. So we've done the engineering based on the entire site.
Thank you. And my second question for you, Mr. Holmes, and again, congratulations. This is obviously a good news story for us.
Yes.
I didn't see anything in the report, maybe it's in your justification report, in terms of the numbers of potentially added jobs for Titan Trailers as a result of this. Will there be some additional hirings as a result of this new facility, or?
Absolutely, there will be.
How many approximately?
We've made commitments to the federal government and to the provincial government of at least a minimum of 80 jobs. But we fully, 80, yes. But we fully expect it to exceed that number over the next several years, yes.
Councillor Wells?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, and certainly Councillor Oliver asked my question, but I do want to say how excited I am, especially when Mr. Rowe said that this new development was going to be as big as Taiotetsu, and it certainly picked up my ears, and it was very pleasant to hear you suggest that phase one would be in the vicinity of 80 to 90 jobs, and as the phases develop, there will be more hirings. Am I correct on that?
That is correct, yes, sir. The first phase will be an initial plant to be constructed this summer. We hope to get going as soon as possible and to have that plant up and going before the end of the year. And then once that's complete, we hope to start on work on a new manufacturing facility and assembling facility that will be much larger. And the scope of this project actually has grown considerably since we first started talking about it. So you're probably looking at a manufacturing building with a new head office and everything that's 200,000 square feet or larger as the second phase. Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Columbus?
How many locals does Titan employ at the current time?
Currently, we were just about 175 before Christmas, and we're currently about 200 right now.
200 plus you're going to go 80, so that is
That's correct. Yeah.
Major development. Dave, you had mentioned that OMAFRA supported the concept. I just wonder if you could clarify that, because they kind of work hand in hand with housing. And the letter we have here kind of doesn't, it's hard to read between the lines and whether they actually...
Yeah, it gets a bit tricky. Our agricultural consultant dealt directly with OMAFRA and developed a justification that, as I understand, they were satisfied with. Also dealing with the MDS and some of those other provincial policies.
So you've seen this letter?
Probably not.
No. Okay. Too bad. So we don't really know if OMAFRA and Municipal Affairs are on the same page or not, right?
Well, that's always hard to tell with those folks.
Right.
So.
Okay. Because, when they say Ministry of Agriculture, Food and Rural Affairs has a lot more to do than just saving a piece of land.
Yeah.
It means the rural economy. And I just wonder if that message got through to Municipal Affairs, because that's why they added rural affairs onto OMAF. Yeah,
it's always a challenge dealing with municipal affairs, as council fully knows.
Understood. I worked there once. Thanks.
Any further questions? Councillor Sonnenberg?
As luck would have it, I was in a traffic jam on the 401 today, and on either side of me was a Titan trailer. I was boxed in by Titan trailers. Anyway, how many trailers do you churn out in a year now, and what's your goal?
We're currently manufacturing about 800 trailers a year, and our goal is to have facilities and capacity to do 2,000 to 3,000 trailers a year. Now that's over a period of 5 years or more, but we're going to have to. That's obviously takes considerable growth and time to grow into that, but that is the long-term goal.
Councillor Sonnenberg?
And further, how many Canadian manufacturers of these types of trailers are there?
There are several small manufacturers, but there are none that has the that would go over 300 or 400 trailers. We're the only one that's up over 500 trailers. But there are some others. There's one other large manufacturer that makes grain elevators in Western Ontario. They would be the only ones that would compete with us, but not at that kind of volume level. There are several in the U.S., however.
Thank you. Councillor Columbus again.
Yes, Dave, can you share a comment about your international operations?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for reminding me, Mike. The Titan does an innovative, and you have to give credit to Mike and Sandy Clough for their innovation and their commitment to the community and their commitment to growing the business. But we do something very interesting, and we make trailers, kits of trailers, and we ship them overseas. We have an assembly plant in England that we ship part trailers to England, and they snap them together. So the majority of the work is kept in Canada. And we also do the same thing with Australia. We don't own that plant in Australia, but we have an agreement with a company to manufacture trailers. Excuse me. So it's a benefit to everyone, not only here, but there's also additional markets that in Europe that we could exploit and ship to as well. So the export market has tremendous potential for us as well. So getting capacity is really an issue for us, and that's what this project is all about, is building plant capacity.
Thank you. Councillor Oliver.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for letting me speak again. I think while we've got you here, Dave, it's a good chance for this to be said, and I think it's been said elsewhere, but when we're talking about our relationship with Fanshawe College and the growth of the Simcoe campus of Fanshawe, and I know one of the areas where they've just expanded is in their specialty welding shop, and I know Titan Trailers was very involved in that, very generous in your support, and you're hiring grads from that welding program at Fanshawe. So let me say again publicly, thank you for that. And I'm guessing there may be even more jobs as you expand into this new facility and new operation.
That is correct, yes. And we've supplied Fanshawe with materials and equipment, and in return they've worked with us very closely to supply their graduates. Excuse me. And I think out of the last class, we got about 10 graduates, or we're getting 8 to 10 graduates out of the class. So, and they're mostly local kids that want to stay in the area, right? So it's a very nice, beneficial relationship for everyone.
Any other questions from council? Gentlemen, thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else in attendance who wishes to speak in support of this application? Kind of looking at you, Chris, because I don't think other than the press and staff and council there is anyone else to speak. Okay, I will take that into consideration. Is there anyone in attendance who wishes to speak in opposition or in general to this application? Anything further from council? I would like a mover and a seconder to close this public meeting. Moved by Height, seconded by Oliver. Those in favor of closing the public meeting, this public meeting is closed. You see the recommendation, Councillor Geisens, please. Here. Thank you. I need a seconder. Councillor Black. Geisens has, sorry. Okay, I was just going to read it and then I'll let you speak to it. It's in front of us, but I think it's important to read it for the public. Moved by Councillor Geisens, seconded by Councillor Black, that this application by 6576 94 Ontario Limited at 1129 Highway 3 at R3 Delhi affects the lands as lots 167, 168, concession STR, geographic township of Middleton, Norfolk County. It's to amend our Norfolk County official plan and the Norfolk County zoning bylaw 1Z 2014 that this application be approved for reasons as set out in the report, and that no public input was received for this application and therefore was not included as part of this recommendation. Councillor Black, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor Luke. I just wanted to say in reference to this letter, they're concerned about is the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing, Rural Affairs, concerned about this meeting the intent of the provincial policy statement, and I know planning staff have reviewed that, and I've read in their report that it is consistent with the provincial policy statement in their professional opinion, and we have that, so I don't really have any concerns about this letter, and support it, and I think it's going to be an excellent boost for our area, the economy, and Councillor Oliver raises a very valid issue about Fanshawe College and the economic activity and employment that it will generate. So this is very good news for all of us.
Thank you, Councillor Black. Councillor Geisens, please.
Thank you, Mayor Luke. I was looking at this from the Ontario Ministry and talking about saying it's prime agriculture. Well, you need to know it's not prime agriculture. It's basically sand, that area, and it has been a blow sand for many, many, many times. So to simply say that this is prime agriculture, I think they have it wrong. What I want to say is this business started, actually, I believe somewhere around Burford somewhere where they started, and then they took over, sorry? Harley, yeah. And they took over where there was a propane plant, I believe, that was making, and they turned that into a business, the Clofers, and we've got to commend them for all that they've done. They have brought that forward. They've got almost 200 employees, and now talking about somewhere around 80 to 100 more employees. So it goes to show what local people can do. And it certainly is something that will help Cortland. Unfortunately, we don't have a lot of housing land that we can look at, but we seem to have some houses that are, at least lots are selling, 1 acre lots, not just 4 or 5 houses on an acre or something like that we can't seem to get. I think, and I want to commend all of them for that have put this into to be an international company out of Cortland is phenomenal. So I would suggest that we move this forward quickly and get it up and running. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Wells.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, for several years we have listened to Councillor Geisens talk to us about industry in Cortland and how important it is to his area. And I think this only goes to show, and I congratulate Councillor Geisens for his tenacity of trying to get more and more industry. It's good for all of Norfolk County, but it's certainly good wherever we can bring new growth. And congratulations, Councillor Oliver. Is that your name? I know that. They will get their congratulations, but sometimes councillors are left out of the mix, and they are behind the scenes pushing, and you have pushed. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further? If not, those in favor of the motion? That is carried. Thank you. Just before we move on, just a couple comments from me, if I will. First of all, I do want to thank staff for their work on this project, and certainly Mr. Rowe expressed his thanks for your assistance. That's very important. And I want to say, David Rowe, thank you for your assistance. And Mr. Holmes, a comment or two from myself. Number one, I know a few years back, or a year and a half or so, Councillor Columbus, you and I don't know if there's any other one from Councillor Geisens toured, the three of us, that facility, and it is still very vivid in my mind what I saw in that plant with the skill, it's like a beehive in there. Everybody's busy, busy, busy. And the teamwork and just the quality of it's the Cadillac of trailers in the world. And now you're making a substantial investment here in Norfolk County to become a world. You're already there, but even a larger world-class facility. So please, on behalf of this council, send our congratulations and thanks to Mike and Sandy. This is just an amazing thing that's going to happen here in Norfolk County. Absolutely. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Thank you. Okay. I would like to go back to our agenda to communications. Back on page 2, we're on page 71 at the moment, and we'll go through these communications. I believe there's 11 of them here. I think I counted at one time. I will start with the communication from Patricia Pierce. It's been moved by Councillor Wells and seconded by Councillor Height that the letter from Patricia Pierce regarding water billing be received as information and that it be forwarded to staff for appropriate response to her request. Discussion on this. Councillor Height, please.
Thank you, Mayor Luke. I couldn't agree with Mrs. Pierce more. You know, she feels that we're making her responsible to pay for somebody else's bills because we're allowing tenants to get off scot-free without paying their water bills. I've done further research into this, and I see the tenant billing application is something that a lot of municipalities and cities provide. Cities like Barrie, Toronto, Richmond Hill, Brantford, Peel, Midland. Okay, so the landlord is billed by default, and if a tenant moves in and you want them to be billed, you fill out a form, knowing that it comes back to you if they don't pay your bill. And like really, unpaid bills are ultimately the responsibility of the property owner. We shouldn't allow people like Ms. Pierce and other water and wastewater customers to have to pick up the tab for delinquent tenants that won't pay their bills. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Black.
We debate this and vote on it before?
Well, I am asking the question, since we have voted on this issue before when it came as a staff report, what exactly this resolution will accomplish. It certainly isn't a 2/3 reconsideration motion, so I'm not just too sure what a appropriate response from staff would be other than to confirm what this council has passed. I think it was about 2 months ago. I haven't looked it up, but Mr. Clerk, any thoughts on where we stand with this?
I would suggest, since staff are bringing back a report in April, that an appropriate response might just be to let her know when a further report is coming back in response to council's direction.
So the clerk is suggesting that the staff respond to Patricia Pierce that this is coming back to council in a staff report. Is that the way I understand what you've said? And that's from Lee Robinson? James, can you shed some light on this?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. There is a report coming back. It was stated it would come back in April. April's starting to run out of time as John Ford is the one that's authoring the report. However, he is away for a period of time, and then he's permanently gone on April 28th. So I know it's on his to-do list. However, if he doesn't get to it, it'll be my priority to get that to council as soon as possible.
Could we reword this motion to say it be received as information and that Ms. Pierce be contacted with the staff, that a staff report is coming forward to deal with this? Does that make more sense or not? Or are we okay with the way it is? Mr. Wells and Mr. Height, it's your motion again. Councillor Black has asked whether this is contradictory, I think, to decision already made by this council. Councillor Wells?
I certainly would support that we would wait for staff, that we inform the writer of this letter that a staff report will be coming back and she'll be notified when it's coming.
I think really the way it's worded says that it be forwarded to staff for appropriate response to her. Yeah. That we forward this to staff, her request to staff, and they provide an appropriate response. Councillor Brunton?
Thank you, Mayor Luke. I thought we dealt with this over a lengthy report a few months back. I mean, in detail.
We did.
So we're doing it again.
When I'm looking at this, it can be interpreted to say they're going to respond to Patricia Pierce. Your question is, why is another report coming when we dealt with it? James, do you know the rationale?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. At the time that the report was brought to council previously, there was a resolution for the treasurer to come back with a report with options on how to collect the arrears.
again, I thought we did.
I didn't realize that as well, but there's only one way, and that's to go back and look at the report, and I don't have it with me at this point. Here you go. Excuse me. You want to do that? I'll get to it.
If you flip to page 161 of your agenda, it's item 23 there. It's on the action item list.
Well, yeah, and I did read through this, and that is very clearly saying that staff be directed to come back with a report on the potential of involving a collection agency. I do recall that now. Yeah, and that's a little different, I think, than saying that we are going to make landlords pay outstanding water bills that their tenants have signed up for, not the landlord, their tenants. Go ahead.
And that's the discussion I recall, Mr. Mayor Luke. I have no problem with it coming back with this report on how to collect. That's totally different from what we discussed as a group around this table. This is a separate issue. This, how to collect the outstanding monies. I personally, I don't want to get back into another debate on that. So,
I'm not disagreeing with what you're saying. Clearly, council has decided, if I may, not to put the onus on the landlord. But this isn't saying that at all. This is saying that staff bring back a report on the potential of hiring a collection agency. Two different things. Towards the same, coming up with a solution. But one solution we didn't approve, council. Now we're looking at an alternative method. Councillor Black, please.
That's why I was getting a bit confused, and I was trying to rely on my memory, but that's why I said I thought that we had dealt with this before, and we have dealt with the one aspect of it that we were not going to put this on the backs of the landlord, but that we would look at other methods of collection. So that's the way I thought it unfolded, and I think that's accurate.
So this motion, Mr. Clerk, will allow staff to respond to Ms. Pierce. That under the action item there is some action coming back to be considered by council, correct? Anything else on this? Those in favor of this motion? Opposed? It's carried. Page 73, please. Moved by Councillor Brunton and seconded by Councillor Columbus that the letter from Robert and Susie Lawrence regarding zoning be received as information and be forwarded to staff for appropriate response. Any discussion on this? Wells and then Columbus, please.
So this will go to staff and for a report, Mr. Chair, and that report will go back to Mr. and Mrs. Lawrence so that they will know what the report says.
Through you, I believe the last I heard, Mary Elder was writing a letter to them to clarify some points, but Chris Baird probably has.
If I could, Mr. Mayor, to address Councillor Wells' question. Mary Elder is, as Andy has indicated, is in communication with them, and what they're proposing, it makes some sense, and they're incorporating that into the official plan review. So that discussion is going. Any of these changes will be coming back to council, of course, in the final report, but I just maybe give council assurance that this will be dealt with.
And Mr. Mayor, I think that's all Mr. and Mrs. Lawrence really wanted to make sure that they are considered, and that because they didn't know how to get this to council, and if I listen to Mr. Baird, this will come back to council, and we will have a chance to debate it.
And Councillor Wells, Mr. Lawrence certainly met with me twice, and it was his wish that this come to council in some fashion, and I suggested this letter, and therefore it is here, and I certainly know that planning department is aware. And the details basically are, is he's got a 3-acre parcel that has been included in the urban boundary to the east of his property on Tisdale Road, and it is somewhat, well, it's not somewhat, it is landlocked, those 3 acres, so he's looking at including some more property to make it accessible by road in the future. Councillor Columbus, please.
Yes, perhaps this has happened where someone from our staff would actually sit down with, I know you've met with them, I understand, but has our planning staff sat down with Bob and Susie to discuss this matter?
They have, yes.
There's an issue with respect to ingress and egress onto Tisdale rather than the other street. That would work better, apparently. Okay, good.
Yes. Any other questions? If not, those in favor? Carried. Thank you, Mr. Baird, for your work on that. Appreciated. Carol Mummery, Invasion of the Dragons, moved by Councillor Sonnenberg, seconded by Councillor Height, at the request from Carol Mummery for designation as a municipal significant event for the July 22nd, 2017 Invasion of the Dragons be approved, subject to receipt of all other required approvals. Any discussion on this recommendation? Councillor Brunton, please.
Well, Your Worship, I need a little bit of clarification because I see it through a lot of these. We have municipally significant event. Can I get clarification on what that really means again? Is there some exemption on that, or what does it mean?
Mr. Baird? No? One of these times I'll get it right. Mr. Griselle?
Thank you. So there are different types of them. Usually we think of a special occasion, that's like a wedding or a stag and doe type of thing, where a municipally significant event is a larger event that they might be having the public through. So usually it's generally the difference between a select group of people being invited or a larger open thing where anybody from the public can attend. So that's kind of the determination. And it's just the LCBO, the ACGO basically provides a license based on that, so they're the ones that kind of determine the criteria.
So there's no added cost for us, municipality?
Through you, Mr. Chair, currently we don't charge any fee for our special events.
Okay.
So these come forward, the majority of them come forward through special events application process.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything further? Councillor Sonnenberg?
Thank you. Further to what the clerk has said, could you not add the fact that it's held yearly to make it a special event? Like this Dragon Boat thing has become a yearly occurrence. I just wondered if the fact that it's held year after year after year would add to the specialness of it.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, that's correct. If it's in kind of an ongoing event, yeah, we look at it as being a more of a municipally significant event. There are sometimes events that happen just once that are municipally significant. I think the Gentleman of the Road is a great example of that. But yeah, you're correct.
Any further? Okay, you've heard the motion on the significant event for the Dragons. Those in favor? Carried. It's been moved by Councillor Wells and seconded by Councillor Sonnenberg that the request from Rawson Services for designation of a special occasion permit for the April 20th, 2017 50th anniversary party be approved, subject to receipt of all the other required approvals. Discussion. Those in favor? Carried. Lots of celebrations in the county. Don MacArthur. Moved by Councillor Wells, seconded by Harold Sonnenberg, that the request from Don MacArthur of the Royal Canadian Legion Branch 79 here in Simcoe for a liquor license extension on August the 6th, 2017 be approved, subject to receipt of all other required approvals. This is a yearly event. Discussion. Those in favor? Carried. Grace Wright. Moved by Wells, seconded by Brunton, that the correspondence from Grace Wright be received as information, and this is her information on Ride Norfolk to us. Discussion. In favor? Carried. Laura Jean Spencer and Jesse Hurdle. I'm on page 86. Moved by Councillor Wells, seconded by Councillor Height, at the request from Laura Jean Spencer and Jesse Hurdle for designation of a special occasion permit dated May the 13th, 2017, be approved subject to receipt of all other approvals. Discussion on this motion. If not, those in favor? Carried. Page 87, Jennifer Van Groningen, moved by Councillor Brunn, seconded by Councillor Height, that the request from Jennifer Van Groningen for designation as a municipal significant event for the May 27 and 28, 2017 Catherwood and Kiln anniversary celebration